Right. So today we're going to speak about what is a sacred site. Okay, so this is a question that I get asked all the time, and I thought I would just give you a simple explanation in this video about how it works and what it actually is. Okay, so many, many moons ago, we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago, our ancestors were way more in touch with the earth than we are today. So they literally were able to feel into and connect with the energy that was underneath the earth, right? So as we walk on the ground, they were able to feel what was going on under their feet, right? And so sacred sites were basically places where the currencies, the electromagnetic currencies of the earth, those like many flowing fields of energy came together. So if you can imagine a whole bunch of lines coming together and intersecting, that would be a real, what we would call a power hotspot, right? And then underneath this, there's also water, like waterways underneath that would amplify this energy. And when you moved through the site, you would definitely feel the change in the current of the energy, and it would become stronger and stronger. So what would happen is that they would literally place stones on these places or build temples or whatever culture you're connecting with, create a mound, put a dolmen up, whatever you want to imagine, and then they would basically use this space as a gateway or a portal way into otherworldly realms. So we're talking about the underworld, we're talking about the upper worlds. They would literally use this space as an amplified energy spot to open up their consciousness to what is out there. So if you can imagine that the energy that is in a stone circle, for instance, right? So they would have placed the stones around the circle. They would have used the stones would contain quartz. So if you go to most of the stone sites here in the UK and you start looking at the actual rocks there, you will see the pieces of quartz within the rocks, okay? And these stones can then amplify the energy. And so when you're sitting meditating in the spot, it's like you literally have this energy like vortex that's being created right next to you. Now, these sacred spots are also later on like connected to sun movement or moon movement or the planets, other astrological constellations. We have some sites that is connected to like Sirius and the Pleiades. So these were all sites where they would utilize the energy of the stars, but they'd also utilize the energy of the earth. Okay, so when you put these two energies together, there's a beautiful amplification again of energy, and then that will take you to wherever you need to go to connect with whatever energies you need to connect with. Now, if you look like at a site like Avebury, for instance, that was a big community space, right? This was like basically a place where people would get together and they would then work with the energies of the sun, for instance. So the energies of the sun would have been like your equinoxes and your solstices, and it would indicate certain times of year. So if you think about how people lived then, their harvest was really important because that was the stuff that was going to sustain them for their lives. And they were basically, you know, they had to focus on this and they had to make sure that they appeased the gods and gave their thanks to the earth and like connected with all the energy so that they would get the maximum results for their harvest for that year. And they also knew that once they had tapped into the energy of the earth and they had literally harvested all of what they could get and then survive the winter, they would have to give thanks as well. Okay, so these spaces weren't just to ask for blessings, they were also to say thank you that the earth looked after them, that the gods looked after them, that the ancestors looked after them. So that would become a community space where there'd be big celebrations, there'd be fires, there'd be dancing, there'd be partying. They literally brought like all of the energy of joy to those spaces to give their thanks to the earth. So what we keep seeing now is like a lot of the sites that we're working with, so places like, for instance, Stonehenge, right? So when the archaeologists started to go there, they were like, oh, okay, this is about 2,500 BC, blah, blah, blah. And now we're all the way down to 8,000 BC because we're starting to understand more of the tribes that live there, etc. The stones might not have been erected at that point in time, but that space was already utilized because of the burial sites, etc. So a lot of our sacred sites are way older than what we think, And it's always really interesting to me, like the deeper we dig, the more information we then get. So another site that is interesting for me is if you look at some place like Notre Dame in Paris, right, the big cathedral. So now often you'll hear me speak about like churches being placed on sacred sites, on places they were kind of like built. So there might have been a stone circle there or a holy well or something like that. And then these churches are literally built on these energy points. Now, I mean, the churches knew very well what was happening, because a lot of the churches that's built on the famous St. Michael ley line, which is in my ley line video, and you can go and listen about that, was placed there in the correct direction exactly as the energy flows. So we know that the churches knew about the energy, the earth energy that the pagans were utilizing. So Notre Dame, for instance, I think it was about 250 BC, the Celts built a temple of Isis there. Right, and they basically had their worshipping spot there, and for ages they were there until like the 1100s. And then what happened was that Notre Dame Cathedral was built on top of where this temple was. Now, obviously, this temple would have been placed in a sacred spot. Water, electromagnetic currents, all of that good stuff would have been taken into consideration. And so when the cathedrals were built, the spires are really important because they basically conduct the energy as well. So all of these things kind of match up quite beautifully. So one other thing that happens a lot is people say to me, I feel like I'm being called somewhere. Okay, so for me, for instance, I felt very much a few years back that I was being called to Egypt. And what happens is that we have this nagging feeling, like I have to go here, I have to go see what is there. There's a feeling inside of you that you need to go visit this place. So what I always say to people is like, these spots have got like a frequency, right? So it's like a little radio signal. So it's like beeping out the whole time. And you've got frequencies within you. And often what happens when you see a picture of these places or you think about these places and you feel this longing to go there, it's about your frequency matching up with the frequency of that space, right? It's literally like a magnet. It's like pulling you back. It's calling you back. So for me, what happens when I go to certain sites, and this isn't at every single site, but obviously because my job is literally to work with the sites, right? But like, it's like when you go back to a site, your frequency then interacts with the frequency of the site. Whatever codes you have dormant in your body, whatever information, whatever parts of you needs to be unlocked, that will happen for you at that site. It might not be immediate. It might be that, like, you know, the lock was opened, the key was turned, you leave, and then stuff starts happening with you. And that's part of your awakening process, or your deeper connection with the energies, or whatever it might be for you. But these sites, when they call us, it's like they know, and like the lock and the key fits together. Okay, so it's really important when you feel the call, make sure that you go there. And if you can't physically go there, we can also energetically work with the sacred sites, right? So I can literally sit here and work with sites in Egypt, or I can work with sites in South America. So wherever I am, I can actually work with these sites, okay? So energetically, it is entirely possible. We don't have to fly all over the planet to connect with these special energies of these places. So the last thing I just want to mention is if you do go to these places and you do decide to work with the energies, always treat these places as sacred. Okay, I think what happens a lot now is like we're literally like, you know, we're bombarding into Machu Picchu and there we are taking our selfies and doing our thing, but we're forgetting about the sacredness of these spaces, and that they were ancestors, ancient ancestors, that revered the site, that literally found the site and went, okay, here we are going to give thanks, here we are going to basically build a society around, right? So when you get to these spaces, firstly, always ask for protection. And then secondly, when you go in, ask the ancient ancestors if you like, ask permission, you know, give me whatever I need here at your site. Okay, the ancestors, the guides, the spirits, whoever is there is always very keen for us to interact, because what's happening now is that reverence, that sacredness is not, it's not part of who we are anymore. It's not part of how we basically connect with these special places. So it's like the earth is longing for this. The earth is literally longing for us to go, I'm here in reverence, please give me what I need. And then we give back, right? We give back with thanks. We give back with from our heart space to these places as well. So it's a reciprocal relationship that we create with the sites. And when we do that, we basically get what we need and we give what we can to those sites as well. Okay, so it really just feels to me like these places are calling us back now. These places are calling us back to a deep remembering of ourselves. These places are calling us back to sit and listen to what the land has to tell us, to what the ancestors has to tell us. And those places are, like I said, massive amplification of energy. You will get so much information if you just take some time to be quiet there and just tune in and just, yeah, make it a special moment. Ask, say thank you, and you will get what you need. Okay, if you have any other questions about sacred sites, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments, wherever, send me a message. I'm always happy to share more information. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this new Sacred Site Oracle video. Please also remember to like and subscribe if you like this stuff, because then you'll see all the new videos coming up. Thank you.